Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to my Sunday Orchid chat, as it's endearingly known. Those new to the channel, when I can, which is virtually all the time, I do a chatty sort of video on Sunday on topics that may or may not be orchid related. We do wander off into other topics and subjects now and again. Sometimes it's just about the place where I grow my orchids, sometimes it's about some specific orchids or some changes going on in either of those. So it's a matter of all sorts, and it's potluck. Sometimes when I start I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. I turn the camera on and just somebody winds me up and turns me on and I go. Simple as that. Anyway, this video today is in two distinct parts. And this is part one, and part two I will tell you about at the end of part one, because not everybody may be interested in it. One person is going to be incredibly interested in it. Right, so yesterday, Orchid Society meeting. Two good things. One, most of the people there paid their subscriptions, which makes for a relatively manic meeting. And I'm aware of this now because I've been to a few of the January meetings, and I believe this is at least my second one as treasurer. And it is a bit manic because you get the committee meeting, that I have to be there early for that. That finishes, gives us chance to put the chairs out, get the tables where we want them, and we did have a specific layout for yesterday's meeting. And in that half hour before the meeting starts proper, people start wandering in. And some of them have got it in their mind that they need to pay their subs. They're due in January. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing, they walk up to you and poke you with a cheque or a handful of folding stuff. And it's the job, you have to do it. Luckily I've got some very, very good helpers that sit on the desk as well, and quite honestly one of those did most of the work while I was doing other things. Anyway, that part went okay. I've now got to get the books up to date, and there is an element of hurry in that to save myself a journey, because if I can get the books up to date, then I can combine two things together in one go. That's part two. Right, so that bit went okay, and the majority of people have made their subs contributions now, and I'm in a position this year where I'm going to get a definitive list of members, because if you ask people, including people that have been there a long time, how many members we've got, you'll get a different answer from everybody. Well, there is only one answer, isn't there? And as treasurer, I'm working backwards. I'm looking at the people who've paid. As far as I'm concerned, those are the members. Anybody else on any other list is no longer a member because they haven't paid. But it does give us an opportunity from one of those other lists to possibly chase people up in case they've just forgotten. But I can cross-reference with last year to see if they actually paid last year. If they didn't pay last year and they haven't paid after the February meeting this year, then they get crossed off the list. They're no longer a member and obviously no longer interested. We have had some people contact us and say that they won't be renewing, sorry and all that, but circumstances, blah blah blah. At least they let us know. Saved us messing around with all these lists, isn't it? So anyway, that bit went okay. Then the meeting proper in January is traditional. We have what we call a brains trust, and this is where people can bring in their problem plants, or perhaps a plant they've been given and they can't find out anything about it to work out how to grow it, but they bring plants in. And some plants were brought in for a specific part of that exercise as a discussion. Somebody said that as a topic, could we discuss what is considered a specimen plant and why? And as soon as you dig into it, you come into so many hurdles and hoops that you have to jump through that there is no definitive answer. What is a specimen plant? Well, to that person, it could be different to that person. That person may have just seen the best version of that plant they've ever seen, but this person here has seen one twice as good. So they might not think of that as a specimen plant. Yeah? So it's a very subjective subject. And it's not hugely important, quite honestly. It's nice to know that you've got one and people would consider it. Basically, the bottom line, I suppose, if you wanted a one-liner, it's a plant that is grown and showing as best as it can for that type. Yeah? So that would include its size, how good the leaves are, how clean the leaves are, its progression, showing that it's growing better each season. You know, bulbs getting bigger, canes getting longer, all that sort of stuff. And it has a really, really good blooming. And then somebody said, does that mean a plant that's not in bloom can't be a specimen plant? And there was a few frowns like, ooh, I hadn't thought of that. And, well, yes it can still be a specimen plant, it's just not in bloom at the moment. And it's still growing and being the best it can be for that type of plant, it's just not in bloom. So, big discussion. No answers really. Nobody walked away from that discussion thinking, right, now I know, because they did, probably none the wiser. Probably more confused than they were when we started. Anyway, then we had a look at some plants, and there were several cotyledons there, so I thought I'd have a go about cotyledons and gave a sort of brain dump. I had a compliment from our president, at least I think it was. It could have been being sarcastic, but I think it was a compliment. He said after we'd finished and everything, he said, I don't know why us two were there, you could have done it on your own. I don't think he was being sarcastic, but you know what I'm like. Once I start, you've got to have the lot. Can't have a one-liner if there's 3 lines to get over. Anyway, so that was the meeting, and the other good bit about the meeting was I got all the kit out of the cupboard, the huge big speaker, the microphones, the projector, my box of stuff that I have to take as treasurer, the tin and the raffle stuff, and loaded it all into the car and took it all there and unloaded it all, and at the end of the meeting I went, bye-bye, put my coat on and left, because it's all there. Lynn and I had a good sort out in the storage cupboards in the back room and made space for the kit. So the kit now lives in the meeting hall, and that's where it stays, because we've discussed with the guy who runs our shows, and in our new venue, given its size, he doesn't need a microphone. He's got a 100-watt mouth basically, so he doesn't need a microphone. In which case, all that kit doesn't have to be taken to the show and set up. Another bonus. Because if it's got to go to the show and be set up, somebody has to remember to take it home with them the meeting before the show. And then they're stuck with it until the next meeting. So it lives in the hall and it gets used in the hall. And at the moment, there is no reason for it to ever go anywhere else. Yay. And it was quite nice to get home and unload the car. That was a box with the tin on the top. One. Back. Pick up laptop. In the cupboard. Job done. Glass of wine. Food. Normally I get home so flipping cream crackers I don't even want to eat. So anyway, the meeting went well. Good stuff. I'm not going to February's meeting because I've booked on the tour at the Mathers Foundation, which will be videoed. Now that is a Saturday. I will film, but it's an afternoon trip and I've got about, I think it's about 1 hour and 3/4 in the car. It depends on traffic and weather and all that sort of stuff. And plus I don't hurry on journeys like that anymore. I leave early and I don't rush to get home. I just plod along with the traffic and look at the scenery out of the corner of my eye. And I have much more enjoyable drives nowadays than I used to when it was all, come on, get out of the way, you know, you drive like that, you're going to have a bang. So anyway, I've got that to come. That will be like a one-off video, a special, when we get there. As I say, that's February. And we will run on from there. In February, the Bournemouth Orchid Society have got their spring show, which I will go to, but I don't film at their shows. It's a long story, I'm not going over it again, but they don't get my camera in their shows anymore. So, unfortunately, no video from that. I might be able to persuade Lynn to do some pictures and put something up on hers, because she'll be there, yeah, so that'd be good. And then in March is my Orchid Society, Wessex Orchid Society. It's our show, and it's our competitive show. We have a display only one in autumn, but a competitive one in spring. So that's where, you know, you have the categories like Vandaceous, Cattleya Alliance, this sort of thing, and then people put their plants, members put their plants into those categories, and you get a first, second and third in the categories. And then some categories are poorly attended, shall we say, and there's only one plant, so you automatically get a first. I've missed out on several firsts by thinking my plant wasn't good enough to take. And if I had taken it, it would have been the only one and it would have got first. Like I always say, if you're in a society or anything to do with showing some plants, you ain't going to win anything if it's stuck at home, are you? Get them in there. Right, so that's that thing's coming up. I plan on doing more outside trips this year. They were very thin on the ground last year. Because I'm retired now, every day of the week is potentially okay to do a trip out. But I still like to avoid the weekends because of the number of people and the crowds, and I do live in a touristy area, and to look at our native orchids, we are getting into tourist season. You know, we're looking into April and onwards, so you know the people are about, which means the roads are busier and everything. So I tend to choose weekdays, and I avoid driving at the 2 school times, which leaves me the middle of the day, you know, from about 9:30 till about 3 o'clock to go somewhere, have a walk round and drive back again. Comfortably, happy, everything nice, weather permitting. So let's hope we get some of those days where it just works and we'll get out and see some of our native orchids. And as part of my trip outs, I often choose places that are butterfly havens as well. So then by choosing a nice day, when there's not much wind and the sun's shining, I get to do both. Yeah, so hopefully some of that, good stuff. Trips to orchid nurseries, I'll have a look to see at what point would be a suitable point to go and see Sarah at Burnham's. I like to visit there now and again, but there might be a specific reason to go, like something's going on there, which, you know, then sort of doubles up. But sometimes I just get up in the morning and think, I'm bored, I'm going to go to Burnham's, and I just get in the car and go, because I can do that. Right, so that's that. Changes that I've done in the grow room with the temperatures. It's too early to tell whether things are getting better, but tomorrow I need to do a watering run, and that's where I get to pick up all my potted plants and have a look at them. I don't think I've done these changes long enough to have any effect, and I'm still running at the temperatures I would call winter temperatures. So I've raised my nighttime minimum from 13 to 15, that's change number 1, and then instead of just letting the day happen, however it is, I wind the thermostat up to 18 at the moment. As I said, we've still got stuff not really growing much at all. It is, you know, short days and everything. So as we get towards the end of February, that 18 will go to 20 because we'll have the day lengths. What's happening now with the day lengths is we've gained about 3/4 of an hour since the shortest day, or longest night it should technically be called. It's funny, everybody thinks, which is the shortest day then? Well, it doesn't matter, because the winter equinox is the longest night, and the days either side are roughly the same length, so they're usually about a second different or something daft. Anyway, so yeah, days are getting longer, but the major change is in February. By the end of this month we'll have gone, it's about 8.5 hours now, the day length. But don't forget that's from sunrise to sunset. At sunrise it isn't fully light yet. Not at that point. It needs another half an hour or so for the sun to climb. But anyway, by the end of this month we'll be up to around 8.5. No, it goes over 9. I think it was just 9 hours 10 minutes or 9 hours 15 minutes, something like that, by the end of March. But by the end of February, we're only a few minutes off that magic 11 hours. So that last week or two of February is a major trigger. That's when I plan to increase my daytime temperatures. Yeah? To coincide with those rapid changing day lengths. And then as you go into March, the day length absolutely rockets, and that's when I'm hoping to trigger new growth. That's the idea of the changes. Time will tell. Might be wasting me time, who knows, and me electricity. While we just mentioned the old electricity, I'm going to have to do it again. Thank you to the two Toms who've between them have virtually paid for my electricity, probably up till the end of February, maybe even into March. So that's brilliant. So these changes are now not directly costing me any extra money. So big thank yous again. It allows me to get these plants going again and hopefully stop losing them. I've lost about 20 plants this winter, including some unusual dendrobiums that I won't be able to get again, I doubt. No. I have to do a raid on Lynn's greenhouse, know some of hers. You'd be surprised because everybody thinks of Lynn as a Masdevallia and Dracula grower, which she is, and she has a specific cool greenhouse to grow them in, but some of them migrate into the intermediate house, which she's got a long greenhouse divided in the middle, first half intermediate, second half warm. So she's got all three environments on the go. And in the intermediate and the warm greenhouse, she has a lot of dendrobiums. And she's got some I've never heard of. She did a video not long ago showing some blooms and stuff, and she shows a bloom and said, and this is dendrobium so-and-so. I thought, never heard of it. So she's got a big collection. Anyway, what we're hoping to do is things like this. This little plant here is effectively, it's a resting type. But what I'm hoping to achieve by changing these temperatures is to stop things like this rotting, like this one probably has. There's another one coming here. So this is Dendrobium harveyanum. It's one of my favourites. I lost my original one. Just as a point of order, it actually bloomed itself to death. Now let me explain. It was in bloom for about 9 months constantly. It kept putting up new spikes from other nodes on the canes. But what was happening was the environment and everything that the plant needed to thrive wasn't as good as it should have been for that type of plant. So I wasn't putting back in what the blooms were taking out. So it was gradually going downhill. And it was blooming continuously to try and save itself and stop itself dying and being able to perpetuate the species. And it bloomed itself to death. It just died after those blooms sort of finished. It just keeled over. So I've got another one because it is one of my favourites. And we do have some new growths. And the object of the temperature changes is to stop those rotting off because it's too cold for them. That's the theory. Right. So that's the changes going on in here, and now I'll tell you what part 2 is going to be in case you don't want to watch basically. I've agreed with Carol that I'm going to pack up the orchids to go today. Now there is a risk element here. There is always a risk with packing orchids and putting them in the post in a box to go to somewhere else. There's a risk of it getting squashed, there's a risk of it getting lost. There's a risk of the company going on strike and it's sitting in a warehouse for a week. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. But if you keep considering the things that can go wrong, they're going to stay here and they're never going to get to Carol. And Carol has got a specific week this week when she can do the work, because they're going unpotted, when she can get on and crack on with that work. So the risk is that it's not going to be very warm this week. So it's a weather risk. Are these plants going to chill down too much? Okay, but as I said, we could be waiting till flipping May if we want to get the weather perfect as well. You know, we've had to wait. We've had Christmas and New Year in the way, then we've had strikes and, you know, so they're going to go, basically. I'm going to risk it. I will insulate the box with bubble wrap thoroughly and newspaper and everything to, you know, to keep the cold out as best I can. And because it's going with the Royal Mail, quite honestly, there's nowhere really involved between A and B where it should chill down to any extent. I mean, it's going to go to the post office. That ties back in with what I was just saying. If I can get my books up to scratch, then when I take the orchids to the post office tomorrow, I can also take the money in the cheques and get them paid in one trip. But yeah, it'll go to the post office. Well, that's indoors. You know, that's like the back of a shop. And then a van will come. Well, I'm sure the guy in the van isn't sitting there with the heater off. So it'll go in a van to the sorting depot. This is a place where people work 24 hours a day. Well, are they going to do it in their hat and coat and furry boots? Of course not. Those places are heated nowadays. And then again, it'll go in a van or whatever to get to deepest Wales. But, you know, the risk element of something chilling down badly is pretty slim nowadays with Royal Mail. I can't say that with other delivery companies. Especially one in particular, where they start like 7 o'clock in the morning and all the parcels from the day before are stored in a warehouse where nobody is until 7 o'clock in the morning. I doubt if that's heated overnight, because those type of companies keep their costs right down as low as they can. But I think we're pretty safe with Royal Mail. So I've got to get a suitable box, which I know where it is, but it's full of stuff, so I've got some work to do. I've got to get the insulation and get myself organised, because I'm going to have a lot of media to get out of the pots and, you know, everything. And I want to individually wrap the roots. I'll just put some kitchen towel around them so that they don't dry out too much. And if they are very, very dry, I'll have the sprayer available. I'll just give them a quick spritz before I wrap them so that they're not bone dry. They shouldn't be in the box long. So, you know, they shouldn't go all mouldy or anything daft like that. They're not going to be in the box long enough, so it should be okay, just to keep them hydrated. And then off they'll go tomorrow. So that's what I'm going to be up to in the rest of the video. And it's going to be long. I thought about doing it as a separate video, but I'm going to do it on the end of this one. I may cut bits out. I may do some heavy editing so that I'm only showing the plant after it comes out of the pot as it goes in the box. There's a very good reason for that. Quite a lot of these plants haven't got a label and I can't be bothered to write them all out. So the rest of this video, as I'm boxing those up, is for Carol so that she can see the plant up against the camera with me saying what it is, if I know, before it goes in the box. So she can come back to the video to find out what each one is. Sound good? Well, that's what's going to happen. Right, big thanks to all the patrons, people who've subscribed. If you haven't, be nice if you did so. And, you know, don't forget the old thumbs up, it all helps. And then we'll move on to part 2 when I've got my stuff ready, because I need somewhere to throw the media and I need the box and I need the lining. I've got some work to do. So the rest of this video might not get done until the afternoon. It's quite early in the day at the moment. But I'm doing it today, it goes in the post tomorrow. And if you don't watch the rest of this, thanks for watching what you have, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Right, I think I'm relatively well organised. We're going to have a conveyor belt system. I've brought the laptop out with the list of plants. I've taken out the plants that went to Sean, so all that's left is what goes to Carol. There are some rules. There are some plants on that list that when I pick them up and think about sending them to somebody else, I might change my mind and keep them. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is that there are some plants on that list that have ceased to be. Therefore, when we get there, they won't be there because they've already been chucked out. And if I believe a plant is far too far gone and like has some rotting pseudobulbs or something that could possibly transmit to others, then I won't pack it. So those are the sort of criteria. Now the idea is that I will get some plants off the list in the order they're in there, put them there, then we'll deal with them, then get them in the box. And then when I've run out of plants there, I'll break off and I'll go and get some more. So that's the idea. It's like a conveyor belt, and the rubbish will pile up here, and in between, you know, one lot of plants and the next lot of plants, I can always empty this out and sort of start again. So that's the idea. And as we go, I will be mentioning the plant's name in the order that they are on this list. This list can be sent to Carol, and in theory, the reverse order of this list is the order they'll come out of the box, you know, the opposite to going in there. The idea is I'm trying to keep identification to the plants as simple as possible. Some of them won't have an ID, simple as that, because it's been lost, and it's just one of the ones without the ID is this one. You see what I mean? That's the best I can do. Right, I'll be back when I've got the first batch of plants sorted out. This seems reasonable to get the job done reasonably quick. I'll be back. Right, we're ready to go with batch number 1, which effectively takes us quite a way down. We shall see. Some are missing, and we'll see how we go. Right, so starting at the top, we've got Shelob Tolkien. Now, we've got 2 plants, one of which is Shelob Tolkien, and the other one is Oncidium Sweet Sugar. I don't know which one's which, so they're both going. You'll have to wait till they flower, or you can dig back through all the videos and try and find out for yourself. But they're both going to go. So the object, these may have no roots. That has old and tired roots, but it does have a new growth. That also has old and tired roots. These may or may not recover. You know, I've got no idea. I just put them in some new media and put them to one side. And now they're going to somebody else who can decide whether to keep them or not. So that's 2. Now both of these have got damp roots. They're not dry. Bulbs are quite shriveled. So the idea is to just get a bit of kitchen roll and gently wrap them. That's it. That's all they're going to get. And I'll leave that dangling simply because if I fold it, it'll take up more space. And then gently lay in the base of the box. Well, that's all they're going to get. As I said, some of these might not grow on, but if they stay here, they won't. My patience has sort of run out with them, so they wouldn't do very well. Right, that's the first 2. That's the first one. The next one is Delicatum. This is a good plant. Nothing wrong with this, and it's got a label. I'll include that. As if it will come out of the pot. It's very dry at the moment. It's meant to be. Oh, crikey! No, it doesn't want to come out. There we go. Now, a lot of that media is just not going to come out. This really wants dropping on into a pot and not disturbing too much really. There'll be a lot of the media will fall out from the centre down through the hole in the bottom. That's where the air cone was. So a fair bit of but there's no weight here because it's not wet. So I'm not too worried. You know, the idea of unpotting these was so that they didn't weigh as much, to cut down on the postage, and also the volume in the box. You know, if these had to go in the box with their pots, you wouldn't get many in. It's only just going to fit. And it really is only just as well. You might end up with a few bent leaves. There is a spike growing on that cane. I will try and preserve that. So this is going to have to go diagonal. And be gently encouraged to sit flat. See, other plants can go in amongst this. You know, they can all be tangled up together. In fact, they'll hold themselves better if they're done like that. Right. The next one is Comet King. Now this is on a mount, and I can't send it. Well, actually, if I bend those roots, if they snap, fair enough. If they don't, then they'll survive. But you wouldn't get it in a pot like that, and I know Carol doesn't do mounts, or I'm pretty sure, so it's going to have to go in a pot, which means it's got to be ripped off the mount. So quite honestly, the best thing to do is rip it off the mount now, isn't it? Then the mount doesn't have to go in the pot, taking up the space. So we'll do that. It's got a tag. Oh, I didn't put the tag in with the delicatum. You just as well have the flipping tag. I mean, I don't need it now the plant's gone. And then we'll see if this will come off. This is dormant at the moment, it's resting. So, come the end of the resting period, this will produce new growths, which will produce new roots. This is well and truly established on here. It's coming off slowly but surely. There we go. Now that gets rid of the weight and the bulk. And it's the fact that it's a resting type, nobly type dendrobium with buds. So it will bloom. Chances are new growths and new roots will follow on after it's bloomed. When those buds push on, you know, and you can actually see them moving away from the canes and starting to form buds on the end of the shoot, that's a good time to start increasing the water and introducing a bit of food. But there's quite a bit of stored energy in this plant. You know, there's some pretty fat canes on there. So that's that one. That should come on. I think that will grow better in a pot than it has in the... I'm going to try not to knock those buds off. Again, that's quite a long plant. It's going to have to go diagonal. There we go. That's that one. I didn't wrap the roots very well. They all come untangled. Never mind. So those roots didn't need spraying because they are dry and they're meant to be. They are meant to be dry. So that's that one. Where are we up to now? Next we've got the... I've brought this one over here. It's not going in the box. This is my Phalaenopsis type Thailand black that I've had for years. It's gone. That is totally rotten. It's all soggy. So I'm not putting that in the box. So that just goes in the rubbish. That was a nice plant once, and the cold's just got it. That's all it is. Right, so that's that one. And the other Phalaenopsis types have all been dumped, apart from this one. And this one, the plant isn't very good. No, the plant's soggy. It's got two kikis. I'll break them off. So this is Dendrobium spring ellipse, and it will be two little kikis wrapped up in some paper, because the plant, the canes are starting to go. They may or may not grow on, those kikis, but they seem reasonably okay. In other words, they haven't got any rot set in. So providing they'll separate like that. So that's just two kikis wrapped up in a bit of kitchen roll. That is Dendrobium spring ellipse, Phalaenopsis type. Nice colours actually. So that will just be a tiny little bit of tissue. I'll stick the tag in there, wrap it up. See, now that can just tuck in anywhere, a tiny little bit like that. So that's that one gone. When I sort through this to throw it away, I'm going to go through and pick out all these large pieces of bark. This is the rock hard bark that I can't get again. And then that will go in some boiling water, be sterilised and cleaned and dried off and kept. It's too good to waste, quite honestly. Right, so that takes us to the end of there. We've now got Dendrobium moniliform. This is not a bad plant. It's trying to bloom, but the bloom spikes I'm not sure are going to make it. Nonetheless, it's got an absolute wealth of new growth at the base. I don't know what the roots are like because I haven't repotted this yet. This came from Marius from the Dendrobium collection. It was one of the duplicates. It's a little bit damp, quite honestly, but so there's no point in spraying that. That'll do. That's not a bad root system. This should grow on nicely this year, given the right conditions. Moniliform, I'm not sure whether these are cooler growers or not. Mainly from Japan. Lynn would know, she's got a large collection of these because they're a bit like the Neophonetas in Japan. They've become like a culture has built up around moniliform dendrobiums, and there are loads and loads of varieties, all with Japanese names. So Lynn would know all about that. This one has no variety name, it's just moniliform. And then again, that can tuck in between other bits and pieces. That's that one. And we're up to a letter page. This is a Dracuvalia, and sorry, but it started to grow and it was a present from Lynn, so it's staying. So that's not going in the box, so don't be looking for it, it ain't there. Copper Wing was the little Masdevallia that I played with on a mount. It died, so that one's not there. Next is 3 Masdevallias. They're all hybrids, they all have no ID. There's big, medium and small. So small is this one. It's just a hybrid. I'm not going to bother with, well, I just got to chuck the tags in, I suppose. I don't know what this one's doing in the pot. It has pushed on some new growths. There's some roots there. There's some old dead roots that will need trimming off before it gets potted. But there's also some new roots. So that's salvageable. You know, if you can grow Masdevallias, then you should be able to pull that one on. I'll put the labels in. They just say Masdevallia hybrid because they have no ID. And I don't know which ones are which. As far as bloom colours and that are concerned, I don't know which ones are which. Then there's the medium one. Again, it just says Masdevallia hybrid. And this one has had problems. As you can see, it won't grow roots from the base. But it has grown some roots higher up. You do what you can with that, quite honestly. This one just refuses to grow roots, and it's been refusing to grow roots for a very long time. I'm sure it's recoverable because the top of the plant looks relatively healthy. And a few new roots have got down in the pot, but not many, and there's some signs of some more growing, so it should be recoverable. Again, if you can grow Masdevallias, then you should be able to recover that one. It's not that bad. No, that's the medium sized one. None of these roots are dry enough to warrant spraying yet. So far so good, as they say. And then we've got the biggie. Don't know what this one's up to in the pot. It's quite a large plant. This may even benefit from being divided, quite honestly. The trouble is, when the plants get too big, they end up going in the bigger pot. And for the active bits of the plant, because they're not all active, some of this plant has died back. Well, that's taking up space in a pot when the plant could probably do with going in a smaller pot. So it might pay to divide that and pick out the good bits. But not my job, basically. I'm just getting the worst of the media off. But not many live roots on this. But it is growing, it does put up new growth, so, you know, that's recoverable, that should be okay, it's not a bad plant. I mean, a lot of people, if they went and bought that as a Masdevallia, they'd be over the moon, thinking, cool, that's a good one, until they got it out of the pot. Right, so that's that one. That's the larger of the 3. So it doesn't matter, because they're all just hybrids, they have no ID. So, again, I'll chuck the tag in. That may be of use. Right, so that's batch number 1. I'll now update the list and take off the ones I've put in there, or tick them off. If I take them off I lose the list. I might actually need to send the list to Carol. And then I'll clear up a bit and then we'll get the next batch out. Right, I've marked off all the others, got the next batch over and marked those up already so that I can see what's left, and what's left is not that much. So this batch is a lot of what's to go. And I've also marked off what's been dumped, so it's not here anymore. But carrying on from where we left off, which was the 3 Mazda Valias, we now come on to a couple of Miltonias. Now I've got to find them again, I know they're in here somewhere. Not that one. That one? Is that one? Yeah, that's one. Now this is growing, it has got a new growth, and that new growth did start to produce some roots that have gone down in the pot. So this should recover okay. It's quite a slow grower, and yes, probably needs to be kept a bit cooler than perhaps some of the other Miltonias, but that's a guess. It's quite a complex hybrid, and the blooms on it are very, very nice. I should keep it really because it was one that was kept back for me by somebody who was looking after the collection of somebody who died, and they kept this one because they knew I liked this sort of thing. But it was a very weak plant, and quite honestly, following on from that new growth, which seems to have stopped growing, but it may pull on with a bit more temperature. That's not a bad root system. When it went in the pot, it had virtually no roots, so it's recovering already. So that's that one, and that is, I suppose I better say what it is, Miltonia William Kirsch Country Garden, in quotes. So variety country garden. But again, the tag will be with it. I'll tuck the tags in with the plants as I wrap them. Hang on, I've got to let nuisance in now. You coming in? Come on then. Wow. You won't get in the way. You get trodden on. Scoot. And that's what was wrong with the last lot of plants I did. No coffee. So we fixed that. Right, so that's that one. The next one coming down, actually that was the one after this one. The next one is Candida, which I believe is this one. This needs some work before it goes in. No, that's unnamed. So where's the one? Is this it? Yeah, this one. Right, this is another Miltonia, and it's Candida crossed with, can't read my own writing, but it's crossed with the primary cross. So there's 3 species in this one. It's not currently growing, and it has a lousy root system, basically. But it's a very unusual cross. You'd have a job to find it again. And that dead leaf I'm taking off there has got scale in it, so you will need to watch these. I mean, everything got sprayed twice, you know, they all got treated, so the chances are those scale were dead, but take care. The actual name is in the notes, isn't it, Dopey? Right, it's Candida crossed with X Binottii, which is effectively Candida crossed with Reginellii. So it's quite a complex cross of species. That's a bit of fun, that one. And I did put the tag in there, yes. You know, job to find that on the internet, I suspect. Right, that's the 2 Miltonias. Now we've got a Nellie Isla, which is red velvet, which is, which one's that then? One of these. This one? Nah. Nah, not that one. So this one perhaps. No, that's the one that needs some work, so it must be this one then. Yay! Right, Nellie Isla, and this is red velvet, one of the varieties that I really like, but I can't get this one to grow. So, as they say, let somebody else have a go. But it's got a crappy root system, excuse my French, and it's probably going to be worth taking these sheaths off because they're staying a bit damp at the base. I just can't get this to grow. But what I have just noticed is it's actually got a spike coming. Whether that will develop and bloom or not, I don't know. But it's a Nellie Isla that's not got much of the traditional lip patterning, and it's a deep red colour, hence the name red velvet. It's a very nice version of Nellie Isla, but I can't get it to grow. So, we let somebody else have a go. That's what we're up to here. And that's the first plant that's gone in the other way up. All the others have gone that way. We're now starting to come back this way to use the space above the roots, because the roots, you know, the plant ends up like that, roots down here, plant up here. We're now going to go that way. Right, so that's that one. That's the Nellie Isla. Renaissance coral. Right, we've now got Renaissance coral on the list. That's been dumped. We've got a Hamiltonara. Now this is another one that I've had for a long time. It did something very strange and grew a pseudo bulb out of the crown. Oncidium type, obviously, intergeneric, and I managed to save the new growth. The rest of the plant went. The blooms on that are absolutely stunning, absolutely stunning. But again, it just doesn't seem to want to grow very well for me. It has got roots. There's no sign of a new growth yet, but that's what it needs. It needs another new growth to grow on. And I would suggest, although this particular growth looks quite healthy, if it does try and bloom, I would stop it and wait for the next new growth, and hopefully that one's nice and strong. And then it'll have the energy to be able to bloom sensibly. But it's not, you know, it's a healthy looking plant compared to what it used to look like, which was pretty grim. It's grown on a bit since then, so it's not as bad as it once was. But no variety name, I just know it as a Hamiltonara. That's what it was sold as. It might not even be that, you know what these sellers are like. They'll write anything on it to get the sale. Right, so that was that one. That's shades of yellow, that one. We've now got honeybee, so we're getting into bigger stuff. This is an Oncidium, which is, it's like, I would suggest, a revamp of Sweet Sugar, but a stronger version. Bigger pseudo bulbs, better growing, larger spikes, but it's like Sweet Sugar, very similar. And this is a relatively recent plant that I split. This is one of the splits. So it might not have very good roots. It's a healthy plant, but it's not really got any roots. And it still hasn't got any roots. But it's growing, it's got a new shoot, so its potential for growing new roots is coming. And in the meantime, it can live off its own resources because it's actually got quite plump pseudo bulbs. So that's that one. That came from Burnham's last time I was there. It was one of the ones I picked out. And when I got home and took it out of the pot, it was 2 plants. What a surprise. And in addition to that, the roots were absolute rubbish. So one of Sarah's best, but then it's not one that Sarah's grown, it's one that was bought in, obviously. So that's that one. That's quite a large plant. Right. We haven't filled the box yet, but you know, we are getting there. Obviously I've got to be able to fold the top in. Right, so what was that then? That was honeybee, wasn't it? So the next one is a Shari Baby, and I've changed my mind for one good reason. There are 2 plants and 2 plants in each pot, so there's 4. And this is one of them, the one that I was going to let Carol have. The only way that's going in the box is to cut that spike off, and I'm not prepared to do that. That's too good a spike. So I'm going to keep it for now, maybe another time, yeah? But it just inconveniently decided to bloom. So that's staying. But, at some point, you know, that might be another one to go. In fact, I'll have to think about it. I know that Lynn is visiting Carol, but I don't know whether it will be convenient for Lynn to take plants with her. Now, she might be taking some anyway. There might be deals going on. I don't know. I haven't asked. But if Lynn could take that and she's going later in the year, then that will be out of flower by then and it can go in its pot with Lynn. So Lynn's off to Wales on holiday. I don't think she's had much of a holiday for quite some time, with one of the dogs being very poorly and is now gone, and COVID, and you know, none of us had holidays, did we? I don't have holidays, I can't. Orchids, cats and bonsai. Try having a holiday. It don't work. Right, so that's that one. Where are we now? Soto Annum. This is a little one to grow on, basically. It's a nice little plant. This latest growth isn't bad. I suspect there's naffle roots in there, but I don't know, it's starting to grow roots. So that should grow on. Take care with Soto Annum when it's actively growing. It's a bit of a drinker, but if you keep the roots too wet, they'll rot. So have fun with that. One of the parents of the Twinkles, very, very fragrant, and if you can get them going, they're very vigorous and they put up huge spikes, absolutely smothered in blooms. I had one like that once and blew it, basically. I didn't realise it needed so much moisture and it was drying out in between waterings and the roots just frazzled and died. And it was such a big, vigorous plant, without its root system, it just keeled over. So I lost that, that was my fault. Right, next, where do we get to? Soto Annum. The next one on the list is Sweet Sugar. We've already done it. We had the two plants at the beginning. One was Shelob Tolkien, one was Sweet Sugar. They both went in together, so that one's already done. Next we come on to the biggest one that's going in the pot, and this is going to be trouble to get in the pot, I mean. This is Rawdon Jester, and it's one that I split a while ago. Carol's seen it, she knows how big it is, so she knows it's coming. Again, not very good roots, but the latest growth did grow some. They're big chunky roots. They don't like being mucked about. This is one of those that doesn't like being disturbed. So that's, you know, what's fallen off has fallen off. I would suggest when you pot that up, what's on there stays there, because that's not long been repotted. So that media is relatively new. Unflowered so far. They need to be big and strong, very healthy to bloom, because the bloom spike takes an awful lot out of the plant because they're so big. Blooms are 5 inches across, they're massive. And you get a spike with 5 or 6 of those on there. It drains the plant, and the plant is clever enough not to do it unless it can. In other words, it sort of assesses its own strength, and if it hasn't got sufficient strength, it won't bloom. So they can be reluctant to flower, or people say they are, when in fact it's probably that it's just not in a good enough state yet. So that's a biggie. Now let's see if I can get it in the pot somewhere. Can't even get the tag in there. Might have to bend a few leaves here. I'm hoping it's going to lay on the top. These two will go round sideways but without kinking, and those should just twist round there. And there's some signs of some scale on the underside of one of the leaves. Take care. As I said, in theory they should all be dead, but you know, don't trust it. Right, so that was that. That's Rawdon Jester. What's this last little one then? Ah, this is unknown. I don't know what this is. Probably a Miltonia of some sort, but the latest growth has just rotted. This is the problem I've been having. This is what I'm dealing with. they just rot. So I'm going to take that off at the base. I'm going to take it off, or let it fall off. And there's also a pseudo bulb that's on its way out that I will cut off cleanly with the scissors, like that. And that leaves a plant that might be okay. It has bloomed for me, but it's got a new growth coming, so it has potential to pull on, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure that's a Miltonia of some sort. Now, I had Summer Glory and Summer Breeze. I think it was the summer. One of them was a present from a good friend and has been put to one side, and I think this might be the other one. So it's either Summer Breeze or Summer Glory. I can't remember which way round they went, basically. So no tag on that one because it's unknown. Let's tap that in there. Right, some plants escaping the insulation in here. A little bit of adjustment. Right, so that's that batch. I'll have another tidy up and then there's just a few more to go, and then we'll look at closing the box. So I'll be back. Right, I changed my mind when I looked at the list. It wasn't worth cleaning up and coming back for just 2 plants. This is my little Phalaenopsis that's been on a mount for a very long time, and I'm sure would do better in a pot in a nice warm environment rather than struggling to exist here. It's got a new leaf growing, there's signs of some root activity, there's also some old tired roots that might want to come off, and that is Soto Grottis. It's actually got a name, it's a mini, and the blooms are very attractive although small. Right, so that's that one. Oh, it's got no tag, but it's the only Phalaenopsis in there, you can't really miss it, can you? I'm not going to be able to wrap those roots that well. I'll probably do. Right, where can I tuck that? Can go there. I unmounted it on the grounds that the mount would have started squashing things. So that's that one. And the last one, which I'm a bit iffy about putting in there, is a Vasa vixella. I was told how to say that because when I looked at the word I thought, I'm not saying that. And it's a species, it's Timbiensis. And it will not grow for me. It's got loads of new growths coming on it if they don't rot. And I think one of the main problems with this is it's the cocoa fibre in there is just staying wet. It's just not drying out properly. So it needs to go in something a bit drier. I do believe it's several plants, but I don't want to mess with it too much now. Because if it's going to get messed with, you know, I mean, there is some nice root activity here, and there are some new growths coming. So if it's grown in the right environment, it should do okay. But here, it's not doing okay. So you don't come across that very often, so I'd rather it went to somebody, you know, to be saved rather than lost. You certainly wouldn't come across that very often. So there we go, and that does have a tag. Not written by me either, that's not my writing. Tuck that in there. And this is the last one now, so this has just got to sit on the top nicely, like that. Right, so that's all that's got to go in the box. Now all I've got to do is see if the box will close. Now this is a double layer of bubble wrap, so it basically goes down one side and up the other side and up the ends. So it's 2 layers of the big bubble wrap inside the box. And then the idea is to sort of fold this over like this. I'm not going to do it now because I haven't got the top. Make sure everything is inside. This flipping delicatum doesn't want to go, just don't want to fit. And then put another double piece on the top, sit it on top, tuck it down the sides, get the flaps over and get it taped up. and we'll see what we can do. What I will probably do, what's the time now? Losing track here, 12:30, it's not that bad. What I'll do is I'll update that list. There's some plants at the end of the list that are not going because I can't find them and they haven't got labels. They're Derek's plants, and there's no labels. I know they're there because I know what was on the list that I took from Derek, but I don't know which ones are which. So the ones that aren't going are, there is a Mexicoa, that's, where is it? That's a version of that in a pot that's doing really badly. Mine isn't doing that good, but hopefully with the dryness through the winter it'll stop losing its new growths. And I don't know which one it is, so I can't find it. It's mislabelled. It was labelled as something that doesn't exist. Cheese Bretianum, as in CH instead of G. So I managed to sort of think, well, if that's what somebody thought it was spelt like, this is probably what they meant. So that's not going. There was a Sherry Baby in Derek's plants as well that I can't find. There was a Maxillara praestans, Maxillara species. I can't find it. And that was it. So there's a few of Derek's plants that don't go. What I'll do is I'll update the list and take off of the list what isn't in the box, leaving what's in the box. And I'll turn that, because it's a spreadsheet, I'll just turn it into a PDF and print it and stick it on the top of the box before I seal it up. Unlike the last couple of boxes where the letter that was supposed to go in the box was outside after I taped it up. There are some special words you can use when you do that sort of thing, because it's very silly. You've got to untape it all and undo it all and then put the letter in and then put it all back together again. Anyway, that's the stuff to go, and packed up. It's gone in that size box. I've already checked with the measurements on the box. It will go okay via Royal Mail, and I'll send it fast delivery, tracked and all that. And once I get the tracking number and everything, I'll let Carol know. So this goes in the post Monday. So there we go, plants to go. Now that seems like quite a bit. The amount of space it's released is not that great, but it all helps basically. So, you know, we're underway. There may be another lot to go. Actually, I'm just looking at one that needs to go. Yeah, let's do it. It's not on the list, but I'll add it. I'll add it, but I don't know what it's called, because otherwise this is going to be lost, and it seems a shame. Ugh. And this is a Renanthera, or Renanthera, however you want to say it, if it will come out. Because it's just not growing, and it's starting to lose its lower leaves. You can see, you know, this leaf is going to fall off soon, so well, that one's already fallen off, and it doesn't leave much of a plant. Now the idea would be to, you know, try and get some more roots to grow and keep this bit healthy. Is that going to fit in the box? I'm not sure it will actually. Well, it's going in the box now, it made me mind it. And this is incredibly dry, so this one I will spray, you know, and we'll give it a little, just to get some moisture on the roots. This is half the problem. I can't keep it hydrated, as well as keeping it warm, you know, and everything else that it needs. So I'm just not looking after this very well. And I think that will just have to go loose on the top. So that's a bonus plant. So Renanthera, I don't know what it is, but I know it's one of three. So, you know, out of those three, it's one of them, but I don't know which one it is. That's just loosely sat on the top, and when I fold that down, I mean, brittle roots like that are sticking up that are going to stop the box shutting, they're going to have to come off. But they're dead anyway. There's quite a lot of dead roots on here. I mean, it's just not growing. It needs some help. You know, these are just soggy. They're just not very good at all. And that whole root's gone. I mean, it looks like quite a healthy root till you feel it, and it's all soggy. So this needs, and in fact I'm going to take it off now. The base of the plant needs to come off. like that. And then this needs to sort of be regenerated. What I would do is take these woody sheaths off, these bits, like that, and then get it in something that will not keep it soggy, but allow some new roots to grow farther up the stem. It's the only way I think this is going to recover, quite honestly. Let's just expose that and then possibly wrap it in a bit of moss or something to try and encourage some root growth and see if that will happen. So there we go, another one sat on the top. Right, I shall get that closed up and print the the spreadsheet in a PDF format so that you've got the list of what's in there, and it'll be in the post tomorrow. If anything goes wrong, I will let you know, but it better not go wrong because it's already in the box now. Right, that'll do. That's a very, very long Sunday video, and whether this section was of any interest to anybody else apart from Carol, I don't know. But yeah, it's done now. Plants to go for this session underway, apart from those that went missing and got dumped or died before they had a chance to go. And this time next year maybe we'll think about doing some more. I don't know. It depends what starts to grow strongly, because that's what I'm after. I'm after a room full of plants that are growing well. In other words, they like it here. And then the whole hobby just becomes so much more enjoyable. Right, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.